Hey there, welcome to this lecture. Today in this lecture, we'll be going to discuss about what are the environment variables. So while we are thinking about the deployment of our application, then we need to dig deeper about the environment variables. So environment variables are some kind of application settings or secrets, you can say, which is really we need to provide while we are deploying our application, so our application can operate normally. Right? As an example, right now, while it comes to deployment of our application, our front-end application is as a form of static deployment or something like that way, then we need to provide some configurations. So as you can see in this diagram, our front-end is talking to our microservices, two of the microservices and one the image image server, right? So which is called like an Amazon CloudFront, which is directly connecting to our S3 bucket. So in this case, there are three types of three environment variables we need to pass it on to the front end, which is called like maybe categories endpoint to talk to our category microservice, and images service endpoint, which is going to talk to our images microservice, and images static URL that is going to talk to our Amazon CloudFront distribution endpoint. So these are the three endpoints, which is a form of plain text, right? Or you can say a form of very simple text we are going to pass it on, or from of a kind of .env file or similar kind of maybe plain text file we are going to support right there, right? So eventually our front end can be directly talk to our services. So this is the way environment variables are working. But while it comes to keep environment variables lean and clean and secure, then what does it mean, right? So front end it's perfectly okay because anybody while our front end, like our users are going to access our front end application, then definitely you can directly see these environment variables, like which endpoints are getting called while we are visiting the categories or maybe uploading the images or patching the images. That's perfectly okay because it's front end application. It's a kind of completely user facing application. But while it comes to the backend application, then we cannot do that, right? Because we need to protect all of the application secrets. So it should not supposed to expose to our client, right? Our end user. So end users are not supposed to see what kind of database we are being used, what kind of cache URL we are used, right? So in the same applies for maybe SNS endpoints, right? Or maybe fetch service, like what are the download URL we are going to use for the remote sources. So those things we need to configure in a way, so in a secure way, so our application, like while we will be going to deploy our application, it's going to read from some sources, right? From some secret source, and it is going to be deploy correctly by adding all of the configurations correctly. So our outside world will be not know in what kind of environments we are dealing with, right? So environment variables we can deal with in the two ways. So one, you can directly add all of the environments in our GitHub, all right? Directly in while we are going to set up our CI/CD, we can add all of these environment variables right there. And on the time of deployment, on the time of running the deployment process, then we'll be going to read all of the environment and runtime from the secrets and decrypt it right there and assign it to that particular final build, right? Then we can ship it to the server, right? So which is we can just keep it secure, and nobody can get into your server. Then internally, our application can read right there and access that all of this decrypt the environment variable values. In another form, we can use some kind of the tools, right? As a form, we can say AWS services. So there's a kind of popular service which is called AWS KMS. AWS KMS in terms of AWS key management service. So let me write it down here. AWS KMS, right? So this stands for KMS stands for AWS key management service. So how the AWS key management service is working? So AWS key management service is a fully managed encryption service that is going to help us to create the store and control our cryptographic keys. They use some kind of protected data in terms of while our application is going to be use all of these keys or environments like secret, whatever we are using right there, whatever we are storing right there, it is going to be decrypt on the runtime and it can be consumed from there. As a prompt, we can say this is a very simple diagram, right? Here we can say keys, right? And while our application, this is our application, right? So we can say this is our application, right? Right? Then our application will be going to access all of the keys, the runtime, right? Let's say key, key request, decrypt key request, decrypt key request. Then it is going to give us like the response line. Key. Runtime readable key. This is what we can get it. Let's try to keep it like here. Right? So this is the way we can directly utilize from our application to store all of the stored whatever we are storing, all of the environments. Then we can just read it on the runtime. But definitely our application should have to be capable for decrypting all of the requests using some kind of AWS credential. So that is a kind of advanced part which is we will going to implement in our upcoming lectures, right? But now you can think of it like environment variables or some kind of application secrets that is being stored in somewhere in the secure place, right? And while our application is going to be needed, then we can read all of the environments and we can just perform our certain operations. As an example, accessing our DB, accessing our cache database, or maybe making some payment or etc. So if you go to source code here, in our front end also we have one env file that is called .env, right? In backend also, if you go here, you can see there is a kind of file that is called .env. So this .env exactly we can just read it from there because we are already using one library that is called .env package, right? So because of this particular dependency in the TypeScript or maybe Nodejs, we are perfectly able to read this .env file, right? And similar applies for the other programming language as well. As a form of, you can say, while it comes to the Go also having some kind of environment reading package or library where we need to create with any file with a .env or some extension, and we are going to keeping all of the environment secrets or maybe credentials just like in a plain text, something like this way. So we can read it all of these things by using this particular delimiter, which is called equal, right? This portion will be a kind of key and this portion will be our value, right? And this is the same way from the plain text to our application, we can directly access all of these things. But is it a kind of really good practice while we are keeping all of these things as a .env? I don't think so, right? This is only used or maybe accessible for our local environment. So while we are going to initialize our Git repository, make sure we should not supposed to commit this .env file to our Git repository, because this is really dangerous, right? All of these credentials you are exposing to the GitHub, then anybody whoever having access to your repository, they can see the credential and they can utilize or maybe they can misuse all of these environment variables. So that's why what we are going to do, we'll be going to keep this .env file, all right? So because someone, maybe someone need to access your repository, they need to understand like what are the environment variables, we need to set it up right there. So that's why what we are going to do, we'll be not going to post these things. Let's go to our backend service maybe. Let's go to our backend here. We can say git init, right? So we are initialize one empty repository, right? So then we are going to create one file. This is called touch gitignore, touch.gitignore, right? And this gitignore file will be going to add all of the files, whatever we are not supposed to be commit to our Git repository. We are going to ignore all of the files, all of the things. So now let's try to add .env, right? So as soon as you are putting this .env right here, can you see like this is already ignored? It's grayed out. So that means while we'll be going to commit our data or all of the source code, then this file will be not going to be submit anymore. But while someone need to work on your repository, then how they will continue? Then what we need to do, we need to just create a kind of maybe example file from this .env. Now let's try to create one. Let's say we can say cp.env. We can say example.env example, right? So this env example has been created. So now we can just wipe it out all of this data from here. Let's say here maybe we can keep it your MongoDB URL, or you can say your application secret. secret. Port is perfectly fine, and node environment also perfectly fine. So you don't necessarily need to write like this way. I'm just like giving an example. But now you can see we are not committing our .env file, but still someone who try to like maybe support you or develop your features of that particular repository, they can have a clear clue like these are the environment variables I need to take. So now let's come to the picture like how we're going to deal with these things in the deployment. So in the deployment, what we will be going to do, we'll be going to add all of these application secrets. Definitely, if I'm going to ask you like what are the secrets, maybe we need to keep it as a secret, right? And what are the environments are not secret. You can see from the top, these are the two URLs, these are the two environment variables are secrets. Because the port is not a kind of secret at all, right? So this is a kind of port number, and this is also a kind of environment. This is not secret anymore. But these are the two things are secret because this MongoDB URI, maybe we need to use the production URI. And this application secret, if you are somehow it is exposed your the production application, then anybody can like decrypt your user's token, right? So these are the two things we are going to add it in our CI/CD pipeline. And similar applies for the front end as well. So while we are going to set up in our front end application, then definitely these are not secret at all because this is a kind of endpoint for our backend API. So here, no any kind of secrets is going to be needed, but still we need to add these things into our CI/CD pipeline. So we can efficiently deploy our applications from there, right? So this is what we are going to do in the next lecture. We'll be going to set up a kind of CI/CD pipeline where we'll be going to set up all of the secrets right there. So efficiently we can deploy all of these things with the help of CI/CD setup by doing by adding these secrets and reading from there, and finally preparing our production server right there. All right, then in an upcoming lecture, what we will be going to do, we'll be going to set up our CI/CD and we'll be going to add all of these environment variables and credentials right there, right? And we will see like how deployment is going to be work, right? And if you are going to watch this microservice deployment scaling the advanced course, then where we'll be going to cover this AWS KMS and SOP as well as, right? So where we will handle all of the environment variables in advanced way while it comes to the microservice deployment. Perfect. All right, then see you in the next lecture. Thank you.